When I first started at this, I'd never picked up a tool. I mean, I'd done stupid stuff with friends, maybe used a drill or something, but I'd never picked up a grinder. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know where the U-joint or the ball joint went. The camera was rolling, but nobody knew it yet. Behind the closed doors of an Alberta custom car shop, a conversation was about to change everything fans thought they knew about Bad Chad Customs. For years, viewers had watched the drama unfold while forming their own theories about what ultimately tore apart one of reality television's most unexpected couples. Speculation ranged from betrayal and financial disagreements to secrets that had never been publicly discussed. But the truth, according to this account, was something few people saw coming. Colton Hiltz sat across from us, his expression carrying years of silence. As Bad Chad's son, he had witnessed much of what happened from inside the family, watching his father's relationship with Jolene McInnes evolve from a business partnership into a romance and eventually into an ending that still leaves many fans with questions. He had rarely spoken publicly about the details. Family loyalty, personal pain, and the complicated nature of life in front of cameras had kept him quiet. But now, he was ready to share his perspective. According to Colton, the cameras only captured a small portion of what was happening behind the scenes. The real tensions had been building for years, with disagreements, pressure, and personal conflicts gradually changing the relationships inside the shop. What appeared simple to viewers was far more complicated from the inside. And understanding that difference may help explain why the Hiltz family remained silent for so long. When Bad Chad Customs first appeared on the Discovery Channel, viewers immediately connected with the concept. Chad Hiltz was presented as a self-taught automotive builder from rural Nova Scotia who could transform discarded materials and junkyard parts into extraordinary custom vehicles. His talent was undeniable, and his personality made him stand out. Standing beside him was Jolene McInnes, who appeared to be the perfect counterpart to his unpredictable creative energy. Jolene wasn't simply Chad's girlfriend. She was also involved in the business and helped manage many of the responsibilities surrounding the shop while Chad focused heavily on his creative vision. Their chemistry appeared natural because their relationship had developed long before the cameras arrived. They had connected through their shared interest in cars and their desire to build something meaningful from the ground up. Colton remembers those early years differently from many viewers. He watched the relationship develop in real time and initially believed Jolene was exactly what his father needed. She brought organization to Chad's creative chaos and handled many aspects of the business that Chad had little interest in managing. More importantly, Colton felt that she genuinely cared about the work and the family. But according to Colton, he also noticed something that television rarely showed. He saw pressure beginning to build almost from the start. Turning a small custom shop into a television production created an entirely different environment. Chad and Jolene were not only trying to maintain their relationship, they were also living under constant public attention. Money, fame, expectations, deadlines, and the demands of producing television all added pressure they had never experienced before. The problems, Colton says, did not begin with one massive explosion. Instead, they started with small fractures that most viewers would never notice. It could be a disagreement about which project should come first, tension over how money should be used, or a moment when something deeply personal was captured by cameras when it probably should have remained private. Reality television creates a difficult situation because producers need compelling stories, editors need tension, and audiences expect conflict. When your personal life becomes part of the product being shown to millions of people, maintaining a clear boundary between private life and entertainment becomes extremely difficult. Colton explains that his father and Jolene gradually began feeling the strain of presenting their lives to an audience while simultaneously trying to maintain something genuine away from the cameras. Chad was an artist first and a businessman second. His passion was creation. He enjoyed taking broken pieces and transforming them into something extraordinary. He naturally thought in terms of ideas, possibilities, and finished designs rather than spreadsheets and schedules. Jolene, on the other hand, understood the practical side of running a growing business. She understood the importance of completing projects on time, staying within budgets, managing relationships with customers, and maintaining the commitments made to clients and partners. In the early days, those differences actually worked in their favor. Chad could dream while Jolene helped turn those ideas into reality. But as the show became more successful and the pressure increased, the same differences that once made them a strong team began creating friction. According to Colton, he witnessed arguments that never made it onto television. There were disagreements about the direction of the company, arguments over priorities, and different opinions about what the shop should eventually become. The role of money also became increasingly important as the business and television exposure grew. One thing many viewers may not realize is that reality television does not automatically mean enormous wealth for everyone involved. While some reality personalities eventually negotiate major contracts, compensation can vary significantly depending on the production and the individual's role. At the same time, television can create new expenses and pressures that did not exist before. According to this account, money became another source of tension between Chad and Jolene. The shop gained attention, the television show brought new exposure, and that exposure could lead to more customers and larger opportunities. But the production itself also created additional demands. There were deadlines, filming requirements, and pressure to create vehicles that looked impressive on camera even when those projects were not necessarily the most practical or profitable choices. Jolene reportedly wanted a more structured approach to the business. She saw the television exposure as an opportunity to expand the brand, bring in additional staff, develop new revenue streams, and potentially build something larger than the original shop. Chad, however, appeared to resist that direction. He did not want the workshop to become a large corporate operation. He wanted to keep the environment smaller, more personal, and focused on craftsmanship rather than expansion. He had spent his life building cars because he loved creating them, and turning that passion into a large business empire was not necessarily what he wanted. That difference represented two completely different visions for the future. Neither side necessarily had to be completely wrong. Chad wanted to protect the creative identity of the shop, while Jolene wanted to build on the opportunities that were appearing in front of them. But as the pressure increased, finding a balance between those two visions became increasingly difficult. Eventually, according to Colton, there was a specific moment when he realized the relationship might no longer be reparable. It happened during filming while the team was working on a particularly challenging build. They were racing against a deadline to complete a vehicle for a client who had been promised a reveal on camera. Chad wanted to make additional modifications that would take more time but could potentially make the finished vehicle much more impressive. Jolene, however, reportedly believed they needed to stick to the agreed plan because commitments had already been made and the client was expecting the project to be completed within a specific time frame. What started as a professional disagreement eventually became something much more personal. According to Colton's account, the argument escalated, and things were said that could not simply be taken back. Accusations were made about who had contributed more to the success of the shop, and the disagreement exposed deeper frustrations that had been building for a long time. Questions about whether they were truly partners or whether one person was carrying the other had been building beneath the surface. Resentments that had accumulated over months suddenly spilled out in front of the crew, the cameras, and everyone inside the shop. Colton remembers watching his father's face during that argument and seeing something change. It wasn't simply anger, and it wasn't exactly hurt. It was more like resignation, as if Chad suddenly realized they had crossed a line that could not easily be crossed back. The relationship continued for some time after that, but according to Colton, the foundation had already been damaged too severely. The cameras captured parts of the conflict, but viewers never saw the complete context. Much of what happened remained outside the final episodes, leaving audiences with moments of tension without understanding how serious the underlying problems had become. What appeared to be another disagreement on television may have actually been the beginning of the end. Reality television is built around editing. Hundreds of hours of footage can be reduced to a handful of episodes, with producers selecting the moments that fit the story they are trying to tell. Some scenes are left out because they don't fit the narrative, while others may be too personal, complicated, or emotionally difficult to explain within the limited runtime of an episode. According to Colton, this meant viewers often saw the conflict without seeing everything that was happening behind it. During this period, Colton says his father became increasingly withdrawn. Chad spent longer hours inside the shop and threw himself into his projects with an intensity that seemed to go beyond simple passion. For Chad, working on cars appeared to become a way of escaping the problems surrounding him. At the same time, Jolene was reportedly becoming increasingly frustrated as she tried to keep the business moving while Chad became more focused on fabrication and his own work. There were reportedly conversations about counseling, taking a break from filming, and even separating the business relationship from the romantic relationship. But that was easier said than done because almost every part of their lives had become connected. The shop was their shared dream. The television show documented their life together, and their personal relationship was deeply connected to the business they had built. That created an impossible question. How do you separate yourself from someone when your entire livelihood has become connected to them? How do you continue working together when the romantic relationship is no longer working? And how do you protect something you spent years building when the people behind it can no longer agree on what the future should look like? According to Colton, both Chad and Jolene struggled to find an answer. Neither wanted to completely destroy everything they had created, but continuing in the same way was becoming increasingly difficult. Eventually, the pressure reached a point where something had to change. Every relationship that ends usually has a moment when one or both people realize they cannot continue the same way. For Chad and Jolene, Colton says that moment came during a conversation about the future of the television show. The network wanted to continue filming and documenting their lives while expanding the Bad Chad Customs brand. Jolene was reportedly prepared to continue. She saw another season as an opportunity that could potentially create long-term financial security and help establish the business even further. From her perspective, walking away from such an opportunity may have seemed like giving up on years of hard work. Chad, however, was exhausted. He had spent years living in front of cameras and dealing with the pressure that came with having his personal life turned into entertainment. He was tired of having decisions examined by an audience and tired of feeling that every moment had to become part of a television storyline. The constant pressure appeared to have taken a serious emotional toll. Colton remembers the conversation as being quiet rather than explosive. Chad reportedly expressed that he could no longer continue under those conditions, not simply with the television show but with the relationship itself. Jolene, meanwhile, reportedly felt that she could not continue investing in a business that Chad seemed unwilling to expand in the direction she believed was necessary. From Colton's perspective, neither person was necessarily the villain. Neither was completely wrong. They had simply developed different priorities and different visions for the future. The pressure of reality television had intensified those differences until finding common ground became almost impossible. When the separation finally happened, many fans expected a dramatic public breakup. They expected accusations, arguments, and a highly publicized feud. Instead, they got something very different: silence. For a period of time, both Chad and Jolene largely stepped away from the public conversation. The show went quiet, and when information eventually began to emerge, it remained limited and carefully worded. According to Colton, both sides made a conscious decision to keep the details of the breakup private. Whatever anger, disappointment, or sadness existed between them, they apparently did not want to turn those emotions into a public battle. They had already spent so much of their relationship in front of cameras. In the end, they wanted the final chapter to belong to them rather than to television audiences.